Mandy Boylett here from UKIP. Morning, Mandy.
Good morning, Dan.
Morning. What sort of music do you like?
I like ABBA.
Do you like ABBA?
I like ABBA, yeah.
Would you love ABBA to get back together?
I'd love them to get back together. And, if they need a fifth member, I would always volunteer for that role.
Would you? What song would you sing?
Being such a wonderful singer.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I've got a karaoke version of Dancing Queen. No, I'm only kidding. I know. Go on, what's your favourite ABBA track?
My favourite ABBA track is The Winner Takes It All.
Oh, do you know what? It's legendary, that song. It is amazing. And do you know what? You only have to listen to the first couple of notes of that.
Oh.
I know, and you know instantly what that song is?
Yeah.
3 seconds of it and you're just sold.
I was 16 and my boyfriend had just dumped me.
No!
Yeah, it's true.
But it wasn't one of the members of ABBA.
No.
You weren't in that story.
No. I think one of the members of ABBA would have got into a lot of trouble had it been.
Tell you what, let's ditch that. We better not pursue that one. Okay, so you found us, which is the main thing, or we found you
Yes.
upstairs. Growing up, politics, did you always want to be in politics when you were growing up?
Never thought about it, really. My family had always been Labour, I would say.
Okay.
And I suppose I got a little bit interested when we lost the Falkland Islands
Oh, yes.
to Argentina, and then Margaret Thatcher was sending the boats down to get them back, and I thought, great, she's standing up for the UK, but all through university, I would say I was more Labour. I read the Daily Mirror.
As Labour supporters do.
As Labour supporters do. And it was only really I got annoyed with the European Union and our loss of democracy.
Yeah.
And that was when I started watching some of Nigel Farage's speeches in the European Parliament, and I thought, wow, he's saying everything that I'm thinking. And it was from that I developed an interest in politics. Okay,
that's quite interesting. So, although you never sort of grew up thinking, I would always want to be a politician, Nigel Farage got your attention from an early age.
Yeah, well...
Sounds wrong, that, doesn't it? It sounds so wrong. We better not go down that line. We will be sued by UKIP.
I admired what he was saying, and I admired the way he'd set up UKIP from nothing. Because he followed his beliefs. I think a lot of politicians go into politics for the prestige and the position and the money. And it was nice to see somebody doing something because they truly believe it, and not just after a big career with a chauffeur-driven car.
Yeah, which is what allegedly happens sometimes, yeah. So, back to the election, Mandy.
Yes.
Where did it all go wrong?
I think... Well, UKIP actually did really, really well. We got 4 million votes and just one MP. The Scottish National Party got 1.5 million votes and over 50 MPs. And I think the problem is with our electoral system, because the support for UKIP is spread very broadly.
Yeah.
It just didn't reflect in MPs. And I think that says more about our electoral system than it does about success or otherwise of UKIP.
So you think the problem's more how the system's set up rather than... I understand where you're coming from, because obviously Scotland made Nicola Sturgeon seem to do very, very well, but actually it depends which sort of system you use and how you look at it to depend on how... And obviously it didn't work very well for Nigel Farage. Had that system been used, an alternative voting system being used, it's probably fair to say UKIP would have had more than one member of Parliament.
Yes, and and it's a shame because the views of 4 million people I don't think were reflected in the results, and I think you have to question a system that allows that to happen.
Okay, so you lose the election. And your leader at that time, of course, and indeed now Nigel Farage stands down, decides to go on a bit of a holiday, and then comes back, leads the party. Is he still, in your view, the right man to lead UKIP?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Definitely. He's got the charisma. He's got the knowledge. He's really clever. He's seen what's happened with the EU right from the beginning. I know there's TV reports media reports of people falling out and this and that. But I think it just gets a little bit more publicity with it being UKIP. But in my view, Nigel Farage is the man.
Yeah,
definitely. And he's in there, grassroots out, working cross-party, which I do think is really important, because I don't think the EU really should be a party political issue. It's about our country's democracy. And it's nice to see UKIP, Conservatives, Labour, even Green.
Even Green?
Even Green.
I like the way you said even Green.
Green. The Greens, quite rightly, are against TTIP.
Are they?
Yes.
Good grief.
Because we could, it could risk our NHS.
Right, okay.
And that's something that UKIP have always been against.
Yeah, of course, where, as opposed to some of the other parties, they are not as concerned about the NHS.
Well, it's surprising you'd think that the Labour would be against TTIP, because essentially what it means is, the TTIP deal, it means that if the government pursued a policy for the NHS, which would mean an American company who had invested in the NHS would lose money, that American company could sue the government.
Okay.
There was a similar case in Australia where one of the tobacco companies sued the Australian government because they decided to have blank packaging on cigarettes.
Oh, I remember seeing that.
I think it was Philip Morris, I think. And you can't, you have to do what's best for your country. You can't be at the behest of foreign companies. But sadly, the EU is all too influenced by lobbyists and not by what the people want, and that's one of the problems with it.
And you think that's where sort of Nigel Farage could sort of help out a little bit?
I think he can highlight the issues, and I think with the cross-party affiliation that we've got with Grassroots Out, then it's not like it's UKIP. It's like we're a bunch of politicians. This isn't a party political issue. This is a fundamental issue that goes to the heart of our democracy, and we're going to work together, put aside all our political differences to work this out. And I think it makes, I could almost shed a tear to see all these politicians from different parties working together. I went to the Grassroots Out meeting up at Newcastle, and you've got trade unionists there saying why we shouldn't be in the EU. And being cheered by me, it's it's fantastic.
I can imagine you. I recently seen a picture of you on Facebook. Jerry Halliwell would have been proud. You had your Union Jack thing on, and I thought, do you know what? She looks like a Spice Girl.
I really didn't want to be Jerry Halliwell.
Oh, okay.
Because it was difficult, because I knew Jerry Halliwell had worn the Union Jack
obviously,
dress.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I want to wear the Union Jack because, our flag's red, white and blue. And so I thought I'll put some little shorts on instead and some boots that look like socks.
Boots on it, yeah. Easy does it, Mandy, yeah.
With an ABBA vibe there,
Well, of course, a bit of voulez-vous, yeah. So, immigration, which I know this is something UKIP is quite big on. Media hype, or do you think we have a genuine crisis as far as immigration is concerned?
Well, we do have it. We have too many people coming to the country, and we can't control it. And we also, all the parties apart from UKIP, support a discriminatory immigration policy, which for me is the biggest issue. It means that the essentially white European population have free access to the UK without any checks, so they could be have very few skills. Whereas highly qualified people, doctors from India, for example, don't have to jump through hoops to get admission to the UK. And I don't think that's fair. I think we should have a points-based system which is fair to everybody, so that we get the people that the country needs, not open access to people because they happen to have an EU passport and discriminate against people who live outside the EU. And I think the discriminatory nature of our current immigration policy is something that isn't really addressed by the politicians.
So, almost like an Australian
Yes.
point-style system.
I think an Australian point, and UKIP policy is that an Australian points-based system would be the way forward. But what you have at the moment is you have no control of your borders, which tends to depress wages at the lower end. In fact, a survey by the Bank of England said that I think for an extra, I can't remember the exact figures, but I know the more people that come in, the wages go down especially for the manual workers, because the unskilled workers are the ones that tend to suffer.
Yeah, they're on peanuts,
Yeah.
aren't they? I remember once, this is going back a few years ago, we went to Blackpool and there was a lot of Polish people in there, and we went to the restaurant, and do took 3 attempts to get our first course. It actually took an hour and 45 minutes to get through 3 courses, and that was mainly because they were just bringing the wrong courses because they didn't understand English. And it was just like, well, you know what, I understand that people want to work in this country. I don't have a problem with that, but actually you need to understand if you're going to work in an environment where people are going to be ordering food, it's probably a good idea to understand the language.
I mean, I would say that the majority of certainly the Polish people I've come across work really hard and speak really, really good English. And I know the Polish people have a reputation for working hard. So if I was running a hotel catering type establishment and some Polish people, you know, were up for the jobs, I'd probably think, well, yes, because you but you know, so I would say that would more be a problem with the person doing the recruiting than if I was recruiting people for my business. I'd want to make sure, especially if they're dealing with, you know, the public, that they could actually speak English. So
it's a good idea.
I would imagine that was a problem with the management of the hotel as opposed to.
Yeah, it probably wasn't very well thought out. I wouldn't care. It was probably one of the biggest hotels in Blackpool, so I won't name it, but there we are. A few years ago, I remember actually watching Theresa May struggling to kick terrorists out of this country. It's crazy. Yeah, that's madness.
That's the European Court of Justice, which people will point out to you isn't the EU, but it is. You know, it's all the same thing, and that's one of the problems. We need to be able to deport foreign criminals, and we can't have foreign judges who, a lot of the time, they aren't even as qualified as our British judges, and they sit there in their ivory towers, and they're more concerned with the human rights of a terrorist than they are with the rights of the people in the UK and their safety. And you can't have a foreign power telling you what to do. I mean, the UK courts